Dear students, let us continue on our module 4. Today we are going to see the different types of visible surface detection algorithms. Back face detection, how we can determine in a polygon the back faces. Then the Z buffer method, that is the depth buffer method. And then to conclude, we are going to see some APIs which are supporting all these, that is the OpenGN visibility detection functions. So basically the visible surface detection algorithms, it can be of two types, that is the object space method and the image space method. The object space method, it is going to compare the objects in terms of its parts and how these parts are connected to the object within a scene and how we are going to determine whether it is part of a surface as a whole. So like this we are going to see whether that particular object is visible or not visible. But in an image space algorithm, we are going to decide based on the point by point representation of that object. That means according to each pixel where the particular pixel is placed in the projection plane. Based on that we are going to classify them as the visible or not visible. So if you are using pixel by pixel, then that is called as the image space. If we are comparing the objects and their parts, then that is called as a object space method. So many visible surface algorithms make use of the image space method, and some of them also make use of the object space for detecting the visible surfaces. For example, the line display algorithms, it makes use of the object space method to identify the visible lines in the wireframe display. But the image space algorithms, it can be easily adapted to the visible line detection. That means one particular problem is there, we can make use of either the image space or the object space. It is having its own advantages and disadvantages. Based on how we are going to look at that particular problem, we can adapt that one to either the image space or the object space. Whether we are using the object space or whether we are using the image space, it may be any type of visible surface detection algorithm, but along with the basic algorithm, we also need to see for many other points if you want to have a good performance. So some of them would be sorting and coherence. Sorting means we are going to sort them according to the depth. So suppose we are having a view plane. So from the view plane, what is the distance to that particular object? We are going to measure. According to that, we are going to order them. That is called as sorting. Then we are having the coherence methods. That means if there is some incoherence in the particular scene, that will be captured, and we are going to concentrate on whether the scene is regular, whether it is plane. So some object is misplaced over here and there. That property we are going to capture in the coherence method. So then if I am having a scan line, so you know what is a scan line, right? If I am having a line connecting from the one particular position on the left side to the same row on the right side, one straight line if I am going to draw, horizontal line I am going to draw, that is the scan line. So if this scan line is having constant pixel intensities, then of course it will be one line only. And if we are having a pattern of multiple scan lines, we can see that there will be change from one line to the next. There should be some change. Only then I can detect that particular line. Then if I am having some animations in my scene, obviously in the neighborhood of the animation there will be some changes. That means the pixels around that particular animation, they will be having some changes. And then based on this we can establish the constant relationships among the objects in the scene, and based on that we can go for finding which surfaces are visible and which surfaces are hidden. Let us talk about the back face detection. So backface detection is done to see which surface or which plane or which polygon has to be hidden and which one has to be displayed. So we have to identify which plane has to be displayed and which plane has to be hidden. So suppose I am having a scene, and in that scene I am having multiple objects, and every object will be consisting of multiple polygons, and in turn the polygons will be consisting of multiple points. So let us consider one point on one polygon, that is x, y and z. If the point is behind a polygon surface, that means if it is back face, then this property ax plus by plus cz plus d, it will be less than 0. Where x, y, z, of course there is that is a 3D point, and a, b, c and d, they are called as the plane parameters. And then suppose I am having the line of sight to the surface along the position itself. That means I am looking at the back of the polygon. That means I can neglect it. I can make use of this property if that position is along the line of the sight to the surface. If it is along the line of the sight to the surface, then it is considered as a back face. Another way of detecting a back face is by making use of the normal vector n and the v view vector, that is the viewing direction vector. So when I multiply these two vectors and if the result is greater than 0, I can conclude that polygon is a back face. So these are some methods how we can go for finding if the polygon is a hidden surface or it is not a hidden surface. Look at this picture over here. I am having an object. It is having multiple planes or multiple faces. So we can see that some faces are hidden from the camera. It depends upon the direction in which I am going to view the object. Suppose I am viewing it at a direction V view. So then I am having the one particular face which is hidden because of the property. That means when I am going to multiply the n and the V view, and I am going to get a value which is greater than 0. Then this surface is called as a hidden surface. So that then I can go for removing it. Simplifying the back face detection further, when we are having an object in terms of its projection coordinates, and we also have our viewing direction, and in the viewing direction suppose I am looking at a direction which is parallel to the ZV axis, that means in terms of the Z direction, then I have to consider only the Z component and the normal vector n. In the right-handed viewing system, with the viewing direction along the ZV axis, that means when I am going to view at the object along the negative ZV axis, we can conclude that this particular face is back face when I am having c less than 0. The c is nothing but it is the coefficient of the z. So we have the xyz point. In that one, for the z I have a coefficient which is called as the c. So if the c is less than 0, then I can conclude that it is a back face. And then what will happen if c is equal to 0? That means it is just grazing, means exactly it is 0. I am having my viewing direction exactly on the polygon. Then we are not going to take any chance. I am going to put that also as the back face only. So any polygon will be considered as a back face if its normal vector has a z component value and it is going to satisfy the inequality c is less than or equal to 0. Only if c is greater than 0, I am going to consider that plane, or else I am going to reject it. So here I am having a polygon. This polygon is viewed from xv, yv and zv plane. So when I am going to look at this particular polygon in the v view direction, and this v view happens to be minus z. So if the value of the c, that means in the c here what the c value is there, if it is less than 0, then we say it is a back face. If it is equal also it is a back face, if it is less also it is a back face. For the back face detection, if I am making use of a left-handed viewing system, then the plane parameters A, B, C and D, they will be calculated by making use of the specifications for a clockwise direction, because we know that in OpenGL the default case is the anti-clockwise direction. So if it is right-handed viewing system, we go for a anti-clockwise direction. If it is a left-handed viewing system, then it will be a clockwise direction. The equation what we had used previously, it is made use of here also. That means ax plus by plus cz plus d. That same equation I am going to make use of here also to identify whether a particular point is behind the polygon or it is before the polygon. And also by making use of the normal vector and also the viewing position vector, I can identify the value called as c. But in this case, the c value should be greater than or equal to 0 to conclude that this is a back face. And the axis what I am going to consider here, it will be equal to zv axis. So all these are opposite, just opposite to the right-handed viewing system. Anti-clockwise direction, and then c should be greater than or equal to 0, and the axis is positive zv axis. Unlike in the previous case where we had c should be less than or equal to 0, here we have c is greater than or equal to 0. There we had negative zv axis, here we are having positive zv axis. There we had anti-clockwise direction, and here we are going to have the clockwise direction. That is the difference between the left-handed viewing system and the right-handed viewing system. For the back face, I am going to have the parameter c. This parameter will be different for different planes. For every plane, I am going to compute the value for the c, and based on the c, I am going to conclude whether it is a back face or a front face. Suppose I am having a simple convex polyhedron like in a figure 2. That means I am having a simple pyramid. So by making use of this back face detection, I can find out which face is hidden or which face is visible. Because in this particular pyramid, all the surfaces are either completely hidden or completely visible. It is a very simple object. It is not having any multiple complications and all over here. One more thing what we have to observe is we can calculate only for non-overlapping convex polyhedra. We can't have the planes overlapping one on the other. Then it is very difficult to identify which is the front face or the back face. And of course the polygon should be a convex polygons. Only then only we can go for this hidden surface algorithms. Or else we cannot apply the back face method, and it will be a failure. So it should be a non-overlapping convex polyhedra only. Every time my scene may not be a simple one. It can be consisting of the objects which can be concave also. So suppose I am having some objects which are concave. So we have to conduct more tests to see whether that particular plane is hidden or it is visible or it is partially visible. So a scene can be consisting of multiple overlapping objects, and along the view what we are having, that is a line of sight, we can see multiple objects, and these objects may be obstructing or it may be hiding some other objects behind it. So how much part of it is being hidden, how much part of it is seen, that we have to calculate very properly. So if I am having a scene here, it happens so that multiple of the objects over here, they will be removed based on the visibility test, and then I can go for displaying the entire scene. It depends upon how strong our algorithm is and how effective it is going to see the polygons so that we are going to have the display properly. Look at this object. This object is having multiple planes, and these planes, some of them are visible and some of them are hidden. So we have to write an effective algorithm here to ensure that all the hidden surfaces, they have to be removed. And if I am having, say, some part of the plane here which is seen, that has to be displayed. Only part of that particular plane has to be, whichever is visible, it should be definitely put onto the display. Let us talk about the depth buffer. The depth buffer is nothing but it is a Z buffer. So in the image space approach, if I want to find whichever is the visible surface, whichever is a plane which is visible, I can make use of the depth buffer method. Here I am going to compare the value about the scene for each pixel position on the projection plane and what is its depth. So based on the depth, I am going to determine where this particular object is present in my scene. Here every scene has to be processed separately, and then across the surface 1 by 1 pixel will be considered for processing. This algorithm, it is applied for the polygon surfaces because the depth values can be computed very quickly and it is also easy to implement. The depth buffer method is also called as the Z buffer method because here we are talking about the object depth, and we know that the depth is always measured along the Z axis of the viewing system. The X is for the width and Y is for the height and Z is for the depth. So here the depth buffer method can also be called as the Z buffer method. In the depth buffer method, the algorithms will be making use of the distances from the view plane along the z-axis to the plane or to the surface. So in the next slide, we are going to see the picture where we are going to see how it is being computed. Here we are going to have a projection line on the view plane, and then the surfaces can be processed in any order. It will not make any difference because anyhow whichever is having the smallest distance, only that will be considered. So as and when we are going to process one surface, its depth value will be compared to the previously processed surfaces. So whichever is having the least value, that will be considered. If a surface is closer than the previously computed values, that will be the final value which will be copied and it will be saved so that it can be going for the display. This is our final value. Whichever is the closest, that value at that particular point, what is the color, at that particular point, what is the depth, that will be computed and it will be saved. To understand the depth buffer algorithm, we can see here the illustration is given. We have three surfaces, S1, S2 and S3. We have the view plane. The point, the XY, it is depending upon the point on S1, S2 and S3. So we can see the shortest distance from a surface to the point XY is from the plane S1. Why? Because this is lying very close to the view plane. So that point will be marked. So if I am going to compare S2 to XY or S3 to XY, you can see that it won't be as small as S1 to XY. So obviously on S1 at the point, whatever the color is there and whatever the depth is there, that will be taken as the final value and it will be put onto the view plane. So we can see here we are looking from the minus Z direction in the view plane. I am going to consider only the value on the plane S1. Why? Because that is the shortest one, that is the nearest one. So on the S1, whatever the color is there and whatever the depth is there, that is being captured and that will be put onto the view plane. In the depth buffer method, in a scene, whichever is visible, on that visible surface, whatever color is there, that will be saved after the processing. So when I am implementing the depth buffer algorithm, usually this will be done on the normalized coordinates, and we know that the normalized coordinate will be having a range from 0 to 1. So when we are applying the depth buffer algorithm, we are going to do it on a normalized coordinate plane within the range from 0 to 1. So 0 will be considered as a near clipping plane and 1.0 will be considered as the far clipping plane. So between the range of 0 to 1 only, I am going to put all my information because this is my normalized coordinate system. In the depth buffer method, we are going to make use of two buffers. One for storing the depth and one more for storing the color. So the surface color has to be recorded and the distance has to be calculated. So initially in the depth buffer, I am going to put the value as 1, that is the maximum depth. And then I am going to reduce and then I am going to pick up the surface whichever is having the minimum depth. And for the frame buffer, I am going to initialize that as the background color. That means whatever is there in the background color, that will be by default placed inside the frame buffer. Later on, it depends upon the point xy, and that point xy what color is there, that color will be replaced. So then I am going to process every surface whatever is there in my polygon table. So whenever I am applying a depth buffer method, I am going to store all my information in a table and I am going to process one by one. And in that I am going to take one scan line at a time and I am going to compute the depth value. So the calculated depth, it will be compared to the value previously stored in the depth buffer and it will be copied. And also the color will be updated depending upon which pixel I have selected. This is the depth buffer algorithm. Initially we will be having two buffers, the depth buffer and the frame buffer. Depth buffer will be having the value as 1 because I am going for a normalized coordinate system where the depth will be from 0 to 1. I am going to take the initial value of the depth as 1. And for the frame buffer where the color will be stored, I am going to take the initial color as the background color. Then the second step is where I am going to process every polygon in one scene, one at a time. So for every projected pixel position xy, I am going to compute the depth. If that depth, if it is less than the depth buffer, I am going to compute the surface color at that position and set the z as the depth buffer and the surface color as the frame buffer value. Similarly, I am going to do for all the points and the depth buffer and the frame buffer are updated for every point in the scene. For any polygon, I can compute what is the depth of the point on that polygon by making use of the plane equation, where I can find the z by making use of the parameters a, b, c, d and the x coordinate and the y coordinate value. Every scan line is going to differ from its adjacent scan line by one position, either it may be plus or minus. Similarly, for a vertical values also, the scan lines will be differing by plus or minus 1. The depth of any position x and y can be computed by making use of the polygon equation, that is z dash is equal to minus a x plus 1 minus by minus d by c. Because anyhow we are not going to consider the b and d, that means it will be the same value, it will not make any difference. I can also compute it by making use of the equation 6, z dash is equal to z minus a by c. So the illustration of the two scan lines with respect to their pixel positions, they are given here. If I am having one scan line at position y, one more scan line at y minus 1, and if I am having a point xy, we can make out what are the neighbors here. So if I know the neighbors here, then it will be easy for me to find the depth. That is why I am going to make use of this figure over here. Because the ratio minus a by c is constant for every surface, we can go for computing the next values by making use of the previous depth values. The pixel positions from the left to right when we are considering, we can calculate the depth by making use of the previous formula, by making use of the equation 6. We will see how it is illustrated in the next slide as the figure 6. The x dash value, that is the next value for the x, can be computed by making use of x dash equals x minus 1 by m, where m is the slope of the edge. So in the depth buffer algorithm, we are going to make use of such formulas for finding the next positions. Here you can look at the scan lines, and depending upon the scan lines, how the polygon has been constructed. So we can see the points which are intersecting the scan line, and that value can be captured and put inside a array. And later on this will be updated depending upon if there is any other surface which is more closer than this. So this is a visual view how the depth buffer is going to be acting upon the polygons. It depends upon the scan line and where actually the points of the polygon are present with respect to the scan line. This is a picture which is depicting in a polygon for a left polygon edge how we are going to collect the points, which are intersecting our scan lines. So here xy is one point which is on the polygon. X dash y minus 1 is the next point which is on the polygon. So we are going to collect all these points and store them in my depth buffer. In the depth buffer, I can calculate the next value of the depth by making use of the previous value. Because I know the value of the slope, I know the value of the a, b and c. If the slope is infinite, then we can also go for neglecting this a by m and then only go for z dash equals z plus bc. Only thing what we have to see is we should always round these values to the nearest integer, because we have to consider only the pixel positions, and the pixel positions cannot be in terms of floating numbers. Now we will see some of the functions which are associated with the visibility detection. Backface removal can be done by making use of an API which is called as GL Cullface mode, and this mode here, it depends upon which face you want to remove. If you want to remove the back face, you have to give it as GL back. If you want to remove the front face, you have to give it as GL front. If you want to remove both front and back, you can give it as GL front and back. But just before going for that API, make sure that you should use the GL enable. If I am going to remove the front face, then I have to make use of the GL front, or also you can go for the changing the values in my GL front face function. That API you can go for changing the face. The default mode is the GL back, and if you want to activate the culling, we should make use of the GL enable function. And if I am making use of the GL enable, the back face will be removed. If I want to switch off the GL back removal, then I have to go for disable. So GL enable and disable, they will always come in a opposite. So whenever you go for enabling an operation, we should use enable. After the work is completed, we should go for disabling it. In the OpenGL, whenever I have to make use of the depth buffer visibility routines, we have to first go for the initialization of the glut. It can be done by making use of the API glut init display mode. Then the depth buffer values, they can be initialized by making use of the GL clear and by making use of the constant GL depth buffer bit. Because we are going to do this in the normalized range, so the depth values will be minimum 0 and the maximum 1. and I am going to assign the maximum 1 by default. The OpenGL depth buffer visibility routines, they will be activated and they will be deactivated by making use of the enable and the disable API, by making use of the constant GL depth test. So GL depth test is associated with the depth buffer functions. So if I am using a depth buffer function, I have to enable this GL depth test. If I want to initialize the values into the depth buffer, we have to make use of the API GL clear GL depth buffer bit. If I am not going to initialize anything, the default value will be equal to 1. So there will be a depth for every object over here. So this function or this API GL clear, it can be used so that the whole process can be done fast. So because the scene will be consisting of multiple objects and all, so many APIs here, they are going to support the rendering. The projection coordinates in the OpenGL, they are always lying between the normalized value -1 to 1, and the depth values are lying between 0 to 1. 0 is the near clipping plane and 1 is the far clipping plane. If I want to adjust these normalization values, then I can go for an API which is called as the DL depth range, and it is going to range from near normal depth to far normal depth. By default, the near normal depth is equal to 0 and far normal depth is equal to 1. We can go for setting these two values to any other value, but it should be within the range 0 to 1. And then using the DL depth range, we can go for restricting our depth buffer testing only for one particular region in the volume, or we can also go for reversing the positions of the near and far. These modifications and all, they can be done by making use of the depth buffer functions. Another API which is used for testing the condition for the depth buffer routine, it is given by the GL depth function. So the GL depth function will be having a variable which is called as the test condition. The parameter test condition, it can be having any of these 8 symbolic constants. That means it can be less, greater, equal, not equal, less than or equal, greater than or equal, GL never. That means no points will be processed, and GL always, all the points will be processed. We may require this in some applications. So different tests will be useful in different applications, and we can reduce the calculations in the depth buffer. Of course, the default value is GL less because we need to get a point whichever is having the minimum value. We can set the status of the depth buffer to only read-only state or a read-write state by making use of a variable called as a write status in the GL depth mask API. When the status is equal to GL true, we can go for reading and writing. If the status is GL false, then the write mode for the depth buffer is disabled and we can retrieve the values only for comparison. So these features, they will be useful whenever we are having some complicated background with different foreground objects. If I want to get only the skeletal display, that means if I want to get only the wire display of a object, I can go for placing my request to generate only the edges by making use of the GL polygon mode, by making use of the parameters GL front and back and GL line. So this is going to display both the visible as well as the hidden edges. That is one advantage. So if I want to eliminate the hidden lines in the wireframe, then I can go for the depth offset method. We are going to specify the wireframe version of the object by making use of the foreground color. First the foreground color, and then I am going to specify the interior fill version using a depth offset and the background color for the interior fill. We can vary the brightness of an object with respect to its distance from the viewing position by giving a foggy effect by making use of the GL fog eye, GL fog mode, GL linear. In this case, a linear equation is going to be applied and the object colors are going to be varied. Of course, the minimum range will start from 0 and the maximum is 1. If I want to set different values for the minimum and the maximum, then I can do that by in the GL fog F, GL fog start minimum depth. Here I can specify what will be my minimum value. GL fog F, it can be used also for setting the maximum value. We can make use of the floating point values or the integer values. Also, by using the GL fog, we can go for mixing the colors, what is present in the atmosphere and what is the object color. Both these colors can be mixed up by making use of the GL fog. Okay, that's all for today. This is the end of the module 4. Thank you.